Hello and good morning, everyone. My name is Charlotte Coe, like Grace said, and I'm the University Webmaster for USF. I'm really excited to speak with you today about accessibility since it is incredibly important to the work we all do on the web. My goal for this workshop is to provide a high-level overview of what exactly accessibility is and then transition into demonstrating some basic things that we can do in the CMS to improve our content. First, I would really like to emphasize that no one's content is perfect. The reality is that we're all going to make mistakes, and what's important is that we learn from them and we commit to doing better. I definitely don't get accessibility right 100% of the time, but I try to do my best and be open to feedback, and that's all I'm going to ask of everyone here today. So, what exactly is web accessibility? According to the World Wide Web Consortium's Web Accessibility Initiative, it means that websites, tools, and technologies are designed and developed so that people with disabilities can use them. People experience varying degrees of disabilities that can impact their ability to access the web. This can include auditory disabilities, such as mild hearing loss and deafness, cognitive learning and neurological disabilities, which can impact how people process information. For example, ADHD, autism, dyslexia, etc. Physical disabilities, sometimes referred to as motor disabilities, can include tremors, arthritis, reduced dexterity, and amputation. There are speech disabilities, such as stuttering and muteness. And finally, visual disabilities, which can include low vision, blindness, and color blindness. What's great about accessibility is that when you ensure your content is accessible, you improve the experience on your website for everyone, not just users with disabilities. People visiting the USF website may be using their phone, or perhaps they have a slow internet connection. Alternatively, someone may have what's called a temporary disability, such as a broken arm, or perhaps a situational disability, where they want to watch a video, but they can't listen to audio at the moment. Aside from accessibility, though, just being the right thing to do, it's also the law, specifically two laws: the Americans with Disabilities Act and Section 508 of the Rehabilitation Act. Legal requirements for web accessibility have generally been vague in the past, but Section 508 underwent a refresh in 2018 that requires us to meet or exceed the level AA standards of the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines 2.0, also known as WCAG. The Web Content Accessibility Guidelines have four principles that we follow, referred to as POUR, POUR. Perceivable, users must be able to perceive information and user interface components. Operable, users must be able to operate user interface components and navigation. Understandable, users must be able to understand information and the operation of user interface components. And robust, users must be able to access content by different means, including assistive technology, as technology advances. So now that we have a foundation for accessibility and why it's important, let's talk about what we can do to make our CMS content more accessible and user-friendly. So I'm going to switch from the PowerPoint and go over.
And I just want to chime in quickly.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any questions on that content before we move forward? Okay, you did a great job, Charlotte. I'm
Thanks.
glad this is a great overview. And so, yeah, she's going to be demonstrating this within the CMS. So you can kind of see it in action. But again, please put your questions in the chat if you have any. Alrighty, thank you.
Okay, and I have zoomed in a little bit on the screen. So if you have any issues seeing anything, please don't hesitate to chime in and let us know, and I can zoom in further. So first up is titles. Pages in the CMS should have titles that describe their topic or purpose. Descriptive titles can help users identify a page without the need to read through the page's content. By default, CMS pages have the title of title on page creation. The field is a bit tucked away, and we recognize that sometimes folks forget to update it. So we're working on a way to have it be more relevant in case it slips through the cracks and gets published. We can find the title field, though, by navigating to the page's properties and then parameters. The field will be the first thing on the page, and we will change our page's title from title to CMS Accessibility Workshop. The CMS User Guides entry for search engine optimization has further examples of page titles that you can see there. But next, let's talk about headings. Headings help convey how information on a page is structured. They do not need to be lengthy, but they should be descriptive. Headings have different levels or ranks, and they can be nested to create subsections of content. They go from H1, which is the most important, to H6, which is the least important. You should avoid skipping heading levels unless you are closing a subsection, as it can be confusing to users. For example, don't want to go from H3 to H5 versus going from H5 to H3. Also, please do not use headings as a way to style or emphasize text. They should only be used if the text in question is actually a heading. Some heading levels are used within the CMS templates and are not meant to be utilized in the what you see is what you get or WYSIWYG editing regions. For example, on this text page, CMS Workshop is an H1 and accessibility is an H2. That means that you would want to use H3 through H6 when organizing your content. Some other page templates might function a little differently, such as news articles allowing you to use H2 through H6. If you ever have any questions about which headings to use, please don't hesitate to reach out though. Since this page is about accessibility, let's add headings for different sections that I'm discussing today. We'll use the drop-down menu that says paragraph to create H3 titles, H3s for titles, and then headings. I'm copying and pasting because my keyboard is very loud and I do not want to click clack all throughout our talk today. We have headings, we have links, we have images, we'll be covering documents, and then the images section is going to cover a bit more than the others. So we'll add H4s to create subsections for, say, alt text, images of text and contrast, and infographics. As you add headings to a page, keep in mind that you should use proper capitalization regardless of how the text is styled. Write the text like you normally would and let the templates handle if the heading becomes styled as all caps, as is the case with our H3s on text pages. So let's continue on to links. The language we use for links should be meaningful and descriptive. We want our users to understand the purpose of a link so that they can decide if they want to follow it. Ideally, the link's purpose can be distinguished from the link text alone without needing any additional context. Sometimes assistive technology can present a list of all the links on a page to a user, and a bunch of click here links is not very helpful. So let's add a link within our link section to the Student Accessibility Services Accessibility Guide. We want to avoid doing something like click here to view the guide. Instead, let's write Student Accessibility Services has an excellent accessibility guide. And what we'll do is we will link the words accessibility guide. If you want extra credit though, and a gold star for me, you can consider including relevant information about the link target as part of the linked text. For example, accessibility guide, PDF, comma, 1.1 megabytes. And now we've reached images. One of the building blocks of accessibility is alternative text for images, or alt text. Assistive technology can use alt text to describe an image to a user and it can also appear in case an image fails to load. When coming up with alt text for your graphics, think about what you want a screen reader to say when it comes across the image, or how you would describe the image to another person. We shouldn't include phrases like picture of or image of, as screen readers automatically announce that an image is an image. So let's add a medium media right snippet and replace the placeholder with a doodle. So when you add an image to a page via the what you see is what you get editor, the alternative description field functions as alt text. And you should try to limit the text to about 100 characters or less. If your alt text is beginning to look pretty lengthy, consider if that image would be better presented as part of the page's text. For now, we will update the alternative description field to read illustration of a velociraptor looking to the right over its shoulder. And there it is on the page. Next, we're going to talk about images of text as well as contrast. It is preferable to have information in text form versus images of text. When text is presented within an image, it cannot be adjusted by users if necessary, such as increasing the font size. The exception for this is if you find yourself in a situation where an image is absolutely necessary, such as it cannot be formatted in the CMS to the same visual effect, or it's a logo. In these situations, you want to make sure that the image has appropriate alt text for it and contrast between the text and its background. The guidelines we follow require a contrast ratio of 4.5 to 1 for normal text and 3 to 1 for large text, which is about 14 points or 18.5 pixels and bold or larger, or 18 points or 24 pixels or larger for large text. Luckily, an organization called WebAIM has created a contrast checker to calculate the contrast of your foreground and background colors. Using the tool, I can determine that our USF green color, which is hex code 006747, has a contrast ratio of 6.92 to 1 when paired with white, which passes for both normal and large text. This meets our requirement of conforming to WCAG's level AA standards. As an aside, if we wanted to reach for level AAA conformance, we would need to meet a contrast ratio of 7 to 1 for normal text, which is why the tool says fail for WCAG AAA. And the last part we'll touch on with images is about infographics. Infographics are a little bit more complicated than your standard image. If you're unable to convey all of the infographics content within the confines of alt text, you need to create a text version of the infographic. You can either include the text version on the same page as the infographic along with a meaningful heading, or you can link to a separate page that houses the text version. If you go the link route, the link should be immediately before or after the infographic, and the linked text should also be meaningful. A great example of an infographic alongside a text description is also on the WebAIM site. The infographic is presented first, followed by the text version. And then if you inspect the page, the infographics alt text reads Web Accessibility for Designers infographic with text description below. And then last but not least are documents. Documents you create, including Word documents, PDFs, PowerPoints, they should also be accessible. Guidance in this area is a bit outside of my purview, but Student Accessibility Services does have that very thorough guide to ensuring your documents are accessible, along with other valuable information. So there are a wide variety of tools and resources to help us improve our content, several of which are linked on the CMS User Guide accessibility page. There's the WebAIM contrast checker I mentioned a little bit ago, as well as links to screen readers and suggestions like color blindness tools. One tool, though, I specifically want to bring to your attention is the WebAIM Wave Evaluation tool. Wave allows you to submit a URL and it returns a really cool overlay that indicates errors and potential issues. So if you decide to try out Wave, it will check everything on the page, including things managed by the templates that are outside of your control. So don't be alarmed if it highlights things that you can't edit. Instead, focus on your content and such. Aside from the summary and details page, the order and structure panes also provide insight into how assistive technology can interpret your page. And that brings me to the end of the accessibility overview. Pretty quick go through, so we have plenty of time for questions. Does anyone have any questions for me?
Don't be
Um,
shy.
I have a
Yes, Jen.
little nitpicky thing.
Of course.
I was wondering if there's a way to hide the header 1 and 2 as options in the drop down, since we're not supposed to be using them in the.
I really wish there was. Yeah, no, that has been a sticking point with me for like the last 10 years, definitely. It's very annoying. Not that I know of, but I'm gonna make a note to reach out to our vendor again and see if there is anything we can do on that front.
Okay, because I still run across a lot of people using header 1 instead of header 3 on pages.
Definitely. Let me
Thanks.
add a note to that. No, thank you for bringing that up again because things like that, like because I'm so used to it now after a period of time, I forget that other people who are like more digging into it every day that yeah, this is probably causing an issue for them.
Jennifer Barrett, I think you have a question. Feel free to pop up.
In the meantime, Jennifer, it looks like Sarah has a question in the chat. Is the compliance checker when publishing sufficient for checking for accessibility?
I think generally for like text that you're putting on the page, it is really good at that. But I don't think that the built-in accessibility checker is able to determine contrast that you would have in images or any documents or anything like that that you're uploading.
Thank you. That answers my question.
Yeah, and if you have like if you run the accessibility checker and something returns that doesn't make sense or that is worrying you, you can always reach out to and we'll look into it with you.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. And I see Jennifer put, our pages are pretty much set and all we do is alter them. Is this for when creating a new page or if you want to restructure the page? Just the accessibility things in general, Jennifer, or something specific?
Well, I was just, I'm echoing. Okay, I'm gonna put it in the chat. Hold on.
Okay.
While we wait for, oh, there she goes.
So nothing specific. Okay. Jennifer said nothing specific, just in general. So all this stuff, if you look over your pages and you notice if there's anything on them that might be inaccessible, you can always go and update them. It's things to keep in mind in general as you are editing content in the CMS, as you're creating new content in the CMS. And again, if you would ever like us to take a look at something, if you're wondering, hey, have we been doing this correctly? We've been doing this for several years now. We're kind of used to how we're doing this. Is there a better way to? We're more than happy to work with you on that too, to see if there's anything that should be changed or if you also get a gold star for being wonderful. Any other questions?
Charlotte, since we have so much extra time, I was going to ask if it's okay with you, can you bring up how to just access the gadgets right quick, because there is that nifty feature where you can see your title and parameters and all
Yeah, of
that good stuff
course.
there. And then, Sarah, I see that you popped up with a question.
Yeah, since this is a law and I've published things and had things on there that flagged as not accessible.
Mhm.
And I thought, well, okay, I'll get to it later. I mean, is there any way that you guys is there any plans for anyone checking these pages that we're publishing, or like an audit of these type of checks? It's a lot of web pages we all publish, so I just
Yeah, there's a ton.
yeah,
Yeah, it always comes down to resources. Like we're all juggling a lot, and so what
right,
our group tries to do is ensure that the templates themselves are accessible, like that
okay,
everything aside from your content, we try to make sure that no one else needs to worry about that, that whatever the framework you're inserting things into is accessible and meets all the laws. We unfortunately don't necessarily have the bandwidth to go and check. Um, I
okay.
wish we did, but again, if you're concerned about it, definitely reach out to us and we'll do what we can to go through things with you though.
I will. Thank you.
Then I was going to show gadgets. Let's see. I'm looking on my page, Jessica, and I don't see the title gadget. Sorry, everyone. I don't play around with gadgets that often. Are you able to see it on yours?
Let me see if I can pull it up. In the
Thank you.
meantime, if you want to work with Austin, I think he's got a question.
Yeah, definitely. What's up, Austin?
Hey, can you hear me all right?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
I was taking a look at the WebAIM resources. I'm just curious, looking at the test with Wave for websites,
Mhm.
are there any resources you're aware of that can actually test out documents like PDFs versus just web
Ooh.
page?
I don't know off the top of my head. Student accessibility services might be able to provide that information. Let me look through. They have in the PDF I referenced, and we'll be providing links to all these various things that I was showing everyone. They have information on creating an accessible Word document, creating an accessible PowerPoint, and creating an accessible PDF. I think there are ways to within like Adobe Acrobat and within Word and
Hmm.
stuff like that. There's an accessibility checker.
Hmm.
Um,
Okay, I can reach out to
see.
them and ask that. I was just curious if you knew off the top of your head.
No, I'm sorry. I've when I was creating these documents and everything for this workshop, I was actually like for one of the first times like going through and trying the accessibility checkers, and it was really convenient. But the stuff I was doing also didn't have images in it, so I don't know if yeah, they might have some more tools available to help you out with that, especially if you have a bunch of documents already and you kind of want to make sure how they're all looking without recreating them necessarily. Yeah.
Hmm. Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
If they get back to you and you find out something, please share it with me because I'm curious too. I'd love to know.
Okay, I will. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else while Jessica looks up gadgets? Sarah.
Hi, I joined a little late, so you might have already addressed this, but I was
No
just
worries.
curious. So, is it preferable to always, like, when you have a link, to put like text in there and link the text, or as opposed to just having like the naked link to something? So like for example, on our page, we have a link to a Qualtrics,
Hmm.
and I just put like I copied and pasted the link to the Qualtrics, and I did that in case they click on the link and it doesn't work, so they could just copy and paste the whole URL.
Gotcha.
But I'm guessing that might be weird for screen readers potentially.
Yeah, I don't remember what it is about the URL because there is the possibility that the screen reader will pronounce the URL, like it'll read it out loud. So that is a good point. The link doesn't work. I would say probably best to err on the side of caution and
Hmm.
have a descriptive link text like Qualtrics survey for XYZ. Because if the link itself doesn't work to the URL, even if they copy and paste the URL, it's likely it wouldn't work either.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, and then what you could also always do then is include something about if the Qualtrics link doesn't work for you, please reach out to us at xyz@usf.edu.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you. Wayne is posting in the chat about some accessibility checker tools for Office and Acrobat. Thank you, Wayne.
Okay, I'm ready. So let me just share my screen right quick.
Yes.
Yes. So the gadgets are something that rolled out relatively new with the site migration that we did late last year. So what they kind of do is just like give you an easy access feature to just access certain things on the website without you having to like navigate away from where you're at. So if you're on your page and you're getting ready to edit, you're going to notice that there's like this little electric thing over here that's going to say show gadgets, and then it'll show you whatever gadgets you currently have access to. Now, I just want to preface this that both Charlotte and I are currently in admin mode. We're not in level 6, and we apologize about that. So you're going to see that I probably have a little bit more access to certain things, but it's still the same general concept. So if you come over here to the little I don't even know what it's called this morning. It's Friday. But that little wrench thingy, or little, what is that? The little gear. There you go. Little gear. It'll show you which ones you have access to. If you don't have page parameters checked out, you can navigate to it, just check it and then press save, and it'll show up on the side of that little gadgets toolbar. And then you click on it, and voila, it'll show you everything that you would have access to if you actually went to the props and navigated over to the parameters. And it'll give you the ability to just go ahead and enter your title right then and there, your description, any keywords. I don't think anybody really changes the author, but if you needed to change that, you can. And then you can click save and you're done. And then you can just go about editing the rest of your page. I posted up on the chat up a little, like at 10:15, a link to our gadgets. I highly recommend you guys go check those out. There's a couple of nifty ones that might improve your workflow when you're editing pages. Does anybody have any questions on that? No, then back to accessibility we go. Charlotte, it's all yours.
Any other questions? And if you do have a question, but you don't feel comfortable asking it in front of a big group of people or anything like that, you can always send a message to cms@usf.edu, or you can send it to me. I'm cko@usf.edu, and I'd be happy to help you out with it.